Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. Today's topic, jeez, my throat. Today's topic is going to be discussing the importance of multiplayer and single-player games. Now, recently, there's been a lot of games being released that have got people on edge, right? There's been, Elder Scrolls as well. We've got Fallout 76, which is solely online. We've got Elder Scrolls 6, which has not been confirmed if it's online or single player exclusively, and we've also have this case of Call of Duty Black Ops 4 claiming that there will not be any campaign. Now, these are just a few of all of the games that I've been looking into. I wanted to discuss the importance of both. Now, me personally, I love RPGs. I love RPGs. I love immersion. I love lore. I love delving into a whole new type of world and experiencing it for incredibly long amounts of time. Like, you're talking to a guy who's probably put, like, maybe 500 hours into, like, Demon Souls. I'm not even sure how much I've put into Dark Souls. A huge amount of time into Bloodborne, and thousands, I'm not joking, thousands of hours into Skyrim. For me, being able to play single player is a huge importance. While I understand that some people are very fond of PvP and multiplayer and co-op in general, I personally find that it ruins immersion for me sometimes. Other times it can be done very well, but a lot of times it ruins immersion for me. I like to feel like a powerhouse. I like to be able to just dump on everything. That's what kept me playing games like Skyrim so long. That's what kept me playing games like Demon Souls for so long. It's just the ability to create this just absolute beast of a freaking character and it just feel like a freaking powerhouse. When you're playing with co-op and you have people with the equal level of power as you, it seems you don't seem so special, and I guess that this is what's worrying a lot of people when they're hearing about whether these games are going to be single player, multiplayer, or a choice. Now, I personally, in no way, shape, or form, approve of Bethesda's decision to make Fallout 76 an exclusively multiplayer game. I do not accept this, I do not like this, and I will not buy that game if it is exclusively multiplayer. Because it's exclusively multiplayer, it takes away from the depth of immersion that Bethesda games give you. That is why Elder Scrolls Online is often joked at and laughed at, because its level of immersion just doesn't feel as substantial. You're always gonna be around other players, whether you like it or not. And while some may say, well, this isn't true, and there are cases where you can be like, kind of solo dolo, but you'll still encounter that, player every once in a while. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not have any problems with multiplayer. But if a game is going to be an RPG, I think that it should just remain RPG and not try and be an MMO. When an RPG that excels at immersion and single player tries to be MMO, it creates this feeling of, why did I buy this game? When you're talking about an Elder Scrolls game, you look at it at a point of, it's a huge immersion-based game. It's a power fantasy game. You like feeling overpowered. You like being able to abuse crap. When you introduce multiple players who have the same ability to do these things, the games then become less of an immersion thing and just more of a, okay, we'll just dump on this. And to combat this, they just make enemies have huge health pools and call it a raid, and it's just, for me, I don't like that. That's why I never care for things like World of Warcraft and things like that. To compensate for players ending up incredibly overpowered in a huge MMO, they just give enemies huge health pools, and you're spending hours on an enemy, and it's just, for me, I consider that lazy. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not some kind of critic like a lot of these other channels, just hating on people for their design choices. This is not what this video is. I wanted to talk about, if you're going to have something be exclusively online, I personally don't think that it should be considered an RPG. An RPG is a role-playing game. You play the role of whatever character you are. You know, in Dark Souls, the Chosen Undead, Skyrim, the Dragonborn, Demon Souls, Slayer of Demons. You play this role, and it's this hugely important role. But if you encounter people who are basically another version of you, you don't feel like you're this really important character. Imagine playing Kingdom Hearts and everyone and their mom is running around with keyblades. You're gonna be like, excuse me, but that Heartless that you just juggled for 70 centuries, I wanted to do that. You know? People like feeling powerful. And this is heavily, heavily important for RPGs. When you reduce the lack of a power fantasy, people will not appreciate the game. Some will, some won't. But a lot of them won't, because you took away from what the game originally was to them. Now, with that being said, let me go over the pros of multiplayer. So, multiplayer. Some people get bored fast of single player content and they don't really care that it's a power fantasy. They feel like the power fantasy makes things easy, so they want to like either fight with other players, and they don't mind the huge health pool that it gives enemies because it makes them longer, so I guess it kind of feels more challenging. But I want to talk about this because multiplayer nowadays is really just mainly PvP. We can talk about how many games have co-op all we want, but when we really get down to the gist of it, most of these multiplayer games are heavily PvP focused. I mean, look at Battlefield, Call of Duty. We got Star Wars Battlefront. We've got things like, I don't want to say Destiny, but at the same time I do, because like the PvP community compared to like the PvE community is just far larger. I also want to go over, multiplayer is great. It's a great mechanic. Being able to connect with millions of different people in different regions and countries is incredible, and it's an incredible implementation that has been implemented into modern gaming. But when it becomes a forced thing, this is my issue. I do not feel like you should be forced to play something if you don't like. Imagine going to the casino and you're going with a friend, and because your friend is there, you now have to be forced to play a gambling game. This is what I feel like multiplayer is now. It's just becoming forced. These games may claim to have like single player, but they don't really care about the single player. They're there for the multiplayer. You know what I mean? It's all about the multiplayer, esports, highly competitive PvP scene. This is good for people who want to be competitive, but for people who just want to play the game and enjoy themselves on whatever game it is, it gets annoying. I mean, heck, in this case, it's like it really offers little gameplay change. I mean, look at Call of Duty. From the many years that Call of Duty has been around, how much has it truly evolved? Not many can truly say that Call of Duty has evolved much, because it hasn't. aside from a few wall running, I guess, movements and freaking bunny hopping jetpacks, the game has basically not changed at all. And while some may not really care, and trust me, I'm kind of one of them, because I do like a simple game. If it's going to be multiplayer based, and it's just not changing, and it's still being sold for $60 at launch, and then another maybe 40 or 50 with DLCs, then you can see why people will get bored of this and have issues with it. Multiplayer, for me, is a great thing, but it should not be a forced thing. If you do not like multiplayer, a game should offer a good amount of single player content. If a game is going to be $60, I expect good content there. Now, yes, a game doesn't have to have single player, because look at how successful Overwatch was, and Overwatch is an exclusively PvP game. What I'm trying to say is, multiplayer and PvP are both great. Multiplayer, whether it's just being co-op or PvP, or maybe even both, it's great. It's great. But if it completely if it completely takes away from the single player experience, then why would you completely buy the game? Because in my case, like I said, my internet is out. I literally can't play most of my games because they're multiplayer. If something happens to your internet or something, you cannot enjoy what the game is mainly there for, which is like multiplayer, which is why people like single player. It gives you something to do if you don't want to play with your friends. And trust me, we all have those days on multiplayer where you're just getting dumped on and you're like, you know what, let me just hop off and enjoy single player. Games are getting to the point where I just feel like everything is gravitating online, and they're trying to force microtransactions down our throats, combined with DLCs to make as much profit as they can. And trust me, I know, like, I've known plenty of people in business, and they're just trying to milk every dollar out of you. So when people try and defend these, like, just shake your head and keep moving, because they're either in on the whole scheme, or they're just truly ignorant to it. Overall, I think that PvP and multiplayer, as well as single player, there needs to be a balance. There needs to be a decision where you can say, well, maybe I want to play multiplayer, but I don't want to play PvP, so there's co-op. Or I want to play PvP, but sometimes I'm having a bad day, so I just want to play single player. There should be a choice. You know what I mean? Like I said, games right now are getting to a point where there is not a choice. You have to play PvP, you have to play multiplayer, and the single player experience is so dreadfully dull that you just one and done it. You know, you just play it once and you never touch it again. The replay value is just not there. And that's something I'm probably going to make another video on, is replay value for single player games, because that's also important to keeping longevity. Anyway, that is the end of the discussion. I really felt like I needed to get this out there, especially with how these titles are being released. It's just multiplayer, multiplayer, multiplayer. And now even single players are being converted to multiplayer, and it's really aggravating everyone. I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Let me know your comments down below. What do you think about all of this? Rate the video what you think it deserves. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.